All right, we're back. We're at BookCon 2015, where there are a number of amazing events happening right now and thousands of passionate readers running all over the place. And we're sitting here with Austin Kleon, who is our guest host for the full hour. First of all, Austin, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, Austin, you're the author of Steal Like an Artist, which is a wonderful book. It's 10 things nobody told you about being creative. And the other book is Show Your Work, 10 ways to share your creativity and to get discovered. And those are books that are very important to just about all the people running around this building today.
I hope so.
Yeah.
The first book is about how to be more creative, and the second book is about how to share your creativity.
Right.
So the first book is about how to steal inspiration from all over, and then the second one is about how to let people steal from you.
Yeah.
Basically.
Well, I think that that's interesting, because I think the idea of being inspired by other things and finding a way to weave them into the work that you do is so important. And then, of course, there's this Pharrell lawsuit that we'll probably talk about a little bit, because how do you do that? But I think so much of it is borrowing and cobbling and creating something that's uniquely yours from these disparate influences.
Yeah, I feel like, we have this idea that, that creativity comes from, only listening to yourself and like going from deep within. But, we're the product, we're the sum of our influences, it's even in our DNA, you're the sum of your mother and father, and all in your environment and everything you look at and everything you see, and so the idea of the book is to really don't close yourself off and try to be like this lone genius, like turn outwards and soak up inspiration and then bring that back to your desk and weave it into your own thing. And I mean, this is the best city in the world to do that, New York. I mean, I've just been walking around all day up until today, just soaking in inspiration and looking around, and I already feel like I need to go out and make something,
Yeah, so where did the idea to write these books come from? I mean, to experience them is one thing, to start to understand them is another, to actually feel like I've got something to help other people figure this out, this journey that I've taken. When did that come to you?
Well, I feel like it was self-help for me. I mean, I was trying to figure out this stuff. I mean, I've always wanted to be a writer and artist, like, as long as I can remember, and these books are really the things I've learned along the way. They're not like, I'm not some guru, I'm not some teacher, like, standing on stage telling everyone how brilliant I am. I'm a fellow student, and C.S. Lewis said, the cool thing about a fellow student is that he can teach you as much as a teacher can, because he's still in the trenches, he's still trying to figure it out. So these books came from me. It was almost like a letter to my former self, and the first book, Steal Like an Artist, was a graduation speech that I gave to some community college students, and then we kind of, it went over really well, and then we turned it into a book. And then Show Your Work was a result of having Steal Like an Artist out in the world, and people asking me questions about, hey man, like, how'd you do it? How'd you get out there? And so I thought, oh, well, maybe I'll write a book about getting discovered.
You say it so simply. You say, then we turned it into a book. But turning it into a book is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah.
And when you have Steal Like an Artist, it's not even a normal book. It's a creative, interesting book. It's in a different format. There's lots of photos. There's really fun fonts and creative presentations. That's not just a book that any publisher will always run with. How did that process happen for you to get discovered and to make it happen?
Well, I've always been a pictures and words guy. I've always been like, I love art and I love writing. So for me, the images and the words come together. And then what happened was I turned the graduation speech that had slides into a blog post. And that went viral on the internet, and thousands and thousands of people sent it around. And then we found my publisher, Workman Publishing.
A great publisher for this kind of book.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
They do beautiful visual cheap books, basically. Like, they're affordable. Like, that's, they're able to produce these beautiful books at a really good price point. So it's like a really good match. And so then it was just about translating something that was a talk with images into a book, and books do that really well. Like, you can integrate pictures and words. I mean, books are really made to be like this. They're not made to be just, they don't have to just be text. We're living in this age where you can use pictures just as much as words. So.
Yeah, I think so many people have blogs and online, and they build these personalities and stuff. You definitely felt like there was a place for books in this world, and the presentation of that, which is in a sort of bound form, was really important to your artistic expression.
It's funny. A book can go places that, you think when you're on the internet, like, oh, well, this can go anywhere. Anywhere in the world I can get to. But there's this weird thing that happens online you know, having your book out in the world, you just don't know who's going to stumble across it, particularly if it gets in books. You know, bookstores are still really, really powerful.
Yeah.
And people who love books and go to bookstores, like, they're looking for new stuff. And so many people have come to my work just through the book. You know, they don't even know that I'm online and doing things. You know, a lot of people, they meet me and then they find out that I wrote that book and they're like, oh yeah, that book, you know? So for someone who's like a digital native like me and who's internet, it's been a real awakening to have a real object out in the world, something that people like pass around, have on their coffee table and like give to their friends. You know, it has this, books aren't dead yet. You know, they're very powerful and they hold ideas and you can throw them around. You know?
I'd even take the word yet off. They're not dead, and I don't know if they'll ever become, especially when they're published this way, which again, you really can't do any other. I mean, this is the right format for this kind of book.
I think so. I mean, there's a magic in opening a book and the simple act of turning a page and getting to a new spread. You know, new spread, new idea, and it's just you know, there's a magic in that moment in between when you turn the page and when the next one appears. You know.
So tell me about some of the things that when you discovered them and you decided you're going to put this presentation together that you eventually published online, which became this book.
Right.
What were those sort of magic moments where you really thought these are creative breakthrough moments for the idea of creativity?
Well, the point I would like to make is that there weren't any breakthroughs. This book was very much the result of 10 years of trial and error, basically. You know, I wanted to be an art. I think I wrote that book when I was 27 or 28, which is pretty young, but you know, I've wanted to be an artist my whole life. So actually, a lot of that book started on my blog and started out just little writings. You know, I really cobbled that together through like a decade of work. And that's a point I always want to make to people about creativity, is that we have this idea that it's Don Draper meditating and then opening up his idea, you know, and having the idea, right? Yeah, I want it to be that way too, but it's so much more about, you know, just waking up every day and just kind of chiseling away at something.
I agree with that 100%. There's so many ideas that are in your head that I carry with me every day. Unconsciously for most of the time, but they emerge when I'm riding a bike or when I'm on a run or when I'm in the shower or when I'm working on another project and I shouldn't be thinking about it, and they creep in. But they slowly inch their way forward, sometimes in the deep back part of your brain, but they're working.
They're working. Yeah, your brain's always working on stuff, but and you do have those aha moments, like when you're taking a shower. For me, it's like washing the dishes. You know, I'll be washing the dishes and the light bulb goes off. Then to go from that light bulb and to actually turn it into something that you put in the world, that's a whole different thing.
That's actually the saddest, hardest part, because this amazing, beautiful thing, it's its most beautiful.
That's
when
the
it's
real
up
work.
Here, and it's all beautiful and shiny and golden, and then when you try to translate it out of your fingertips into these thing, and then you're like, well, that isn't it at all.
Yeah.
You know, that's like,
well,
that's
you know,
not it.
in a movie, you'll see like an artist, and they're going, and then they just paint, you know. But it's more like a Rocky montage, you know, like when Rocky's like, he's getting beat up and he's running up the steps and he's,
catching
you
the
know, and it's slow and like painful, and then it like, and even at the end, you know, creativity's not linear. Even when you do a project, like if you write a book, then what? Well, you got to write another book, or you got to do something else. You know, it's never over. So like the creative life just kind of cycles over and over. So, you know, I think one of the things we'll hear from our guests today is they have all found a way to turn what they do into a daily practice. And that, you know, you wake up every day and there's some passion or some project that you just work on, and a career or success happens from little bits and pieces of effort stacked up over time. You know,
exactly.
You write a page one day, doesn't seem like much. You do it the whole year, you got 365 pages. You know?
Well, I'm excited. We've got you for a full hour as a guest host today.
I'm stoked.
And the people that you're going to be talking to are people that you've met before. I'm
friends
guessing.
of mine. Good friends of mine. So this should be really interesting.
And they're all in that creative space. We've got Elle Luna, we've got Jessica Hagy, and we're doing a thing with Oliver Jeffers too, who I think fits this category really perfectly. He's here. He was here at Book Expo.
He's a friend of mine too.
So
awesome.
he did a wonderful segment that we're rolling into it that we taped yesterday.
Perfect.
So that'll be there.
Wonderful. He's a great guy.
So it's great to have
brilliant
you.
Guy.
You guys will fit perfectly. It's a great, fun hour we have ahead of us.
Awesome.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And we're going to go now. We are on the floor of BookCon 2015, where we talk to a number of the readers who've come to visit about where they find their creative space, and we're going to throw that to you now.
I write stories a lot and I draw too, so.
Where do you get the inspiration?
I take inspiration from sometimes situations that have happened to me or friends and family members. Like, I'll throw some of the personalities of my friends into some of my characters, so it's kind of cool to see how it works out.
I do like to write, and I've just started shooting and editing for videos, so I like to tell stories that way too.
Are you creative people? Do you find yourself as creative people?
I hope so.
And how do you express your creativity?
I like to write a lot, so that's basically mine. And then I know Wei likes art.
I like to draw, so. Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to draw?
Mostly anime characters.
How about you?
I take photos, like lots of photos. Photography is my thing, yeah.
I like to draw animals.
And what's your favorite animal?
Cheetah.
And where do you get the inspiration for fashion design?
Movies, books, outside, trees, I guess.
Well, I like to write, so I want to write a book one day.
And what do you like to draw?
I'm all over the place. I used to draw a lot of horses. I used to be the weird horse girl, but now I'm mostly focusing on people.
I write.
And where do you get the inspiration for your writing?
Mainly from Harry Potter.
And where do you get the inspiration?
My friend Carly. My friend Carly. And my mom.
By drawing. Yeah.
And what do you like to draw?
People.
Usually, I don't know, it's weird because I always get my ideas, in the shower or right before bed. So, and also I get inspiration from other authors, too, so yeah.
And how do you express your creativity?
Usually just through, the things I say and, the way I dress and stuff.
We love drawing and reading.
And where do you get the inspiration for drawing and reading?
From the authors we like and the TV shows we watch.
And how do you express your creativity?
Through what I wear, what I write.
I just draw, so.
What do you like to draw?
Anything that comes to mind. I'll just be scribbling on a piece of paper, and then I'll realize that it's a school paper, and that doesn't work.
Yeah, I write a lot of poetry and the whole music. I write music and record songs, guitar, and singing.
And where do you get the inspiration?
I think everywhere. My God, sometimes it just hits you when you're least expected. I think you find it when you're not looking for it.
Hi, Rich Foley. I'm on the set of BookCon 2015. We're at Bookview Now set, and I'm here with Austin Kleon, who's our guest host for the hour. And we have a new guest, Elle Luna, whose book is right here. It's a beautiful book, a wonderful book, The Crossroads of Should and Must. Find and follow your passion. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's so nice to have you. This book has really started to generate a great deal of buzz. And when I talked to Austin about coming on, he was like, can Elle do it with us? Would that be cool? And I was like, are you kidding? Can Elle come on? That would be wonderful. And it's really great that you guys already know each other, too, which really helps as well.
So when did we have dinner that one night? It was in the city. It was in New York, and we had dinner probably a couple of months before you posted the original post for
I think so.
Should and Must. And I remember, tell us a little bit about how the book happened. How does this book here?
Wow, what a journey. The book happened because I wrote a manifesto on Medium, and it was titled The Crossroads of Should and Must, and probably like both of you, I publish things online every day all the time, and the spirit of that post was no different. But something happened with that post that had never happened with anything else I had put online. In 2 weeks, I think it was tweeted to over 5 million people and read by over 250,000 readers, and I frantically emailed you, and I said, what do I do? What is?
Did you know is it all at once, or was it just sort of creeping up? And you're like, wow, 1,000 people have read this, and then all of a sudden you have millions.
Ding, ding, ding.
The editors started emailing you, right? Because book people, book people are hungry for good. Everyone talks about, getting a book published is so hard, but if you've got the goods, people are ready for it. People are dying for good material. So people were hounding you. They were knocking on your door, right? And you emailed me.
I emailed you.
Turn off the notice on your Twitter account or something. That's when you know things are going well.
Yeah, when the Twitter and there is a certain point. We can talk about that later, but there is a certain point at which social media kind of breaks down and you can't handle it anymore. But let's stay on top point. So you emailed me. I said get an agent, and you did.
Yes.
And then you found Workman.
Which,
again, they make these beautiful visual books at a good price point. And so talk about taking that. How did you take that Medium post that was an internet thing and then turn it into a book thing?
It went from manifesto to an outline, and then I began drilling into different parts of this outline, different parts of it, and it felt a bit like trying to wrap your arms around a tree that you were never going to wrap your arms around, like a giant redwood tree, trying to just get your hands around it. You could never fully get a sense of where the entire ship was going, so you just would focus on a little part one day, another part another day, and you begin sewing these things together, and at some point the entire system begins to flow. And that was when we hit print.
Well, tell us about the manifesto itself, the Crossroads of Should and Must. Tell us what it means, because there's a lot of people out there, seeking your creative breakthrough where the zenith lies, getting there, is one of the most intense, interesting subjects of today. I think there's so many people who feel like they're not getting there, and they just want to find a path, to find who they really are, and to really make that work. What is this, and where did it come from you, and why was it actually a manifesto?
Well, it comes down to a very specific moment in my life where I saw the crossroads of should and must. I was in a situation where I had a choice to make between two paths that were equally appealing, but they were different. And the way that they were different is that one path was more of a should path, and the other was a must. So I'll explain what those are. Should is effectively how other people want us to live our lives. It is all of the expectations that others put upon us. Now you could say you should listen to this song or go to that movie. Those aren't really the ones that we're talking about. We're talking about the larger ones that when everything's going this way kind of have us off running a different race. And must, on the other hand, is who we are, what we believe, what we know to be true when we are alone with our truest, most authentic self. And choosing must sounds great, but the question is, then why don't we choose it every day? And so after writing that manifesto, I decided to dig a bit more into that must question and why we don't choose it every day, and uncover some of the big obstacles that get in our way, and that's what I included in the book.
I'm curious about how both of you guys found, like, now you have this new life, this post-book life that's really wrapped around these books. I'm curious about, like, how you see, like, that shift that happened with you when you're going down. And for you, Austin, I mean, when the book came out, you said, I'm not a guru or I'm a student, but yet you're now asked to speak and you have all these things happening. I'm curious about how that's affected both of your lives.
For me, it's really important that's where the daily practice comes back in. Is like, it's very important if you are someone who makes something. This has always been true of artists. Like, artists have always made a living by teaching. Like, that's always been a job that artists can get and make some money at. And so the important thing when you're an artist and you're teaching, like if you're a writer and you teach an MFA program or something like that, the important thing is to stay with your craft and to still do your own work while you teach. And so for me, it's very much like you don't want to kind of do the Tedster thing where you're just going around to conferences all the time and telling people how to be creative, and then you don't have any time to actually do your own work. So for me, it's a balance of, I was talking to this, I love meeting teachers when I'm out on the road, and one teacher said, oh, you're like a teaching artist. And I said, well, what's that? And it's an actual thing. It's an artist that teaches and shares. What did we talk about earlier? We talked about being a fellow student. And so it's like having that kind of student mentality that you're still figuring things out, like you're still focused on your work, and what you're doing is you're doing your work, but then you're taking everything you're learning and sharing it. Because teaching, people think about teaching like it's this lofty thing, right? But like what you did with your Medium post, you're like, I learned this thing from what I did, and I'm sharing it with you now. And that's why it resonated with people, right?
I would like to borrow this term. I'm a teaching artist.
Teaching artist.
I join you in your quest.
Yeah, there you go. So how are you? So you're in the middle of it, because your book, when did your book come out?
My book came out April 8th, so
okay.
Just recently.
So you're still in that big promotional kick. So it can be very, speaking of should and must, the shoulds are you have to promote endlessly your book. The musts are you have to do your work. So how are you balancing that right now?
Right now, well, one of the things I talk about in the book is a recurring dream that I had about a white room. Mm-hmm. And it was a room that I had in the dream, and I won't give it all away, but I found this dream in real life, and it really set me off on a treasure hunt in my own life. And so now the white room is a real place, but the question is, once I'm on the road and traveling, I'm not going to be in the white room anymore. Well, I had a very wise friend who I said, oh no, I'll be on the road, what do I do? And she said, you still think your white room is a place, I said, what do you mean? And she said, your white room isn't a room that you go to. Your white room is right here, and you can go there anytime you want.
So you're a big Joseph Campbell fan.
Yes.
Right? So talk for, you know about the Bliss Station, right?
Oh,
so
I know.
Talk for a minute about the Bliss Station.
Sounds like the white room.
Yeah.
Joseph Campbell, for anyone who's in a commencement, it's commencement address season right now. We're hearing a lot of follow your bliss. He had a beautiful saying, which was follow your bliss and doors will open where there were no doors before. Now, follow your bliss can be, I think, is one half of the equation. Following your bliss and following what you truly love is certainly the advice that I would give to anyone who's looking to connect more with their must. The question that comes up again and again, and came up immediately after the Medium post, was, but what if doing what I love doesn't pay? And there's a follow-up to Joseph Campbell's Follow Your Bliss, which is a very interesting distinction around work. And in the book I talk about 3 different modes: jobs, careers, and callings. Jobs being things we do from 9 to 5 for pay. A career is a system of advancements over time, and then a calling is something that we do for intrinsic motivation, something regardless of pay. And what I began to realize as I looked throughout time is that people have combined jobs, careers, and callings in all kinds of wonderfully clever ways to do what they love and make a living, because we have to make a living if we want to live on planet Earth. And I realized that we have often we have the assumption that just because we want to pursue our calling means that we have to quit our job, and that's not the case at all. We might pursue our calling full time and make a living from it, or we might have a job Monday through Friday from 9 to 5, like Philip Glass was a plumber. He also drove a taxi cab. There's any way to combine those 3 things.
There are also people who have decided not to quit their day jobs in order to keep their must.
Yeah, I know many of those people.
I mean, it's especially true in poetry, because no one's ever been able to make any money out of poetry. So you've got someone like Philip Larkin, who ran a library and stayed and did that forever. You've got someone like Wallace Stevens, who ran the insurance company, you know. And so I think there's also something to be said for keeping, you know, there is something to be said from keeping your job away from your calling sometimes.
Totally.
And
maybe your calling costs you money.
Oh, yeah. And there's people who are not as famous as the people that you mentioned, but they love to play music. They love to be in a band, but they can't, because maybe they're not actually good enough to actually make the living that they would love to make, or maybe there isn't enough of a marketplace, but they don't want to give it up. And so they have to find a way to incorporate that love into their life in some way, even if it's not necessarily to make the money and to do it full time.
And that's where that daily practice comes in. You know, setting aside just that little bit of time. You know, I have kids now, and kids are nonstop suck machines. You know, they'll just take all your energy. I got a 2.5-year-old and I have a 2-month-old at home. And one of the things,
much else.
Yeah, so you have to, you know, you got to find every moment you can, and a lot of times that's before they wake up, and that's before after they go to bed, you know. But you know, that becomes its own job, right? Finding the time in your day to squirrel it away. I mean, I wrote my first book before Steal Like an Artist on my commute to and from work and on my lunch break, you know. And so it's about, you know, you write about this really well in Should and Must, about finding those little bits, and it's like looking for change in the couch cushions, you know. It's in between the big stuff in your life, finding those little moments and then doing your thing, right?
How much time would you say you spend, like today for example, would you spend on your practice? Is a really busy day for you?
Well, you know, some days I don't work. That's the real thing. Sometimes I let myself miss a day, and like this will be one of those days. But you know, what's really funny is that what your work is changes. Like I was looking today, and that doesn't sound like work, but I looked at so many things when I was walking around today. It was work, because I will use all that
You're
stuff.
Highly absorbed, you know, you're in absorption
pictures,
mode.
stealing, right? You know, stealing with my eyes. And so, you know, I didn't spend any time today on my practice, but you know, but I'm also, once you have your thing built, you have that muscle memory. It's easier to get back in.
So tell me about the response, because we're wrapping up in just a little bit, but the response for both of your books has been amazing. But yours is out right now, and you're on that promotional tour, and you're seeing people, and there's such a hunger for people to have the knowledge that you've begun to, you know, build in yourself. What is the response been from the readers who are finding your book right now?
The response has been tremendous. It has been such an experience to put an object into the world, especially one where the larger teams that we both have the pleasure of getting to work with create such beautiful, beautiful books.
Yeah.
And to put this object into the world, it's almost like creating a new person that has its own life, that you get to watch work and interact with people. You get to see them start to apply it to their lives. And I don't know about you, but where I see a lot of the stories popping up is online.
Yeah.
People who are experimenting in new ways, trying new things, asking questions, taking photos, putting them on Instagram. And the folks who come out and ask questions at book events is amazing. You get to hear people's real stories. Like just last night, or 2 nights ago, I was in St. Louis, and this man was reminded of his recurring dream that he had forgotten about. And in front of an entire audience of people, he shared, and his wife, who was holding his hand, he shared this recurring dream that he had forgotten about, and he was probably in his 70s. And it was very emotional and very, very beautiful to see him remember. And he said, you know, I think I'm going to go look for that dream in real life now.
Did he have a question? Because a lot of times people don't have questions at Q&As.
Yeah.
You let him tell his dream. Do you have a question?
I think he needed to share.
Yeah.
Well, that's a beautiful story, and it's one we're going to end on because we're going to move on to our next segment. But I have to tell you, your book is really wonderful. I'm really excited about it. Austin, you're sticking around. Glad to keep you here. And Elle, you're welcome to stick around too. But the book is absolutely beautiful. Thank you so much for
Congratulations.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations. Yeah. And we're now going to go to the floor from yesterday's Book Expo America, where we have a segment from the the breakfast that Oliver Jeffers gave here to a really big crowd of people. Another wonderful creative person. I think you're going to love it. We'll be back in a little bit. Look forward to seeing you then.
How would you like to see me draw some pictures, very briefly, before we move on? With the wonders of modern technology, I'm going to tell you a story and draw you a picture. So as I said, all of my stories are true stories. So this is about a friend of mine called Henry. And the wonderful thing about Henry, what made him so interesting, is that, oops, sometimes hard to draw with this, that Henry loves books. Not the way that you and I like books. No. Henry did not like books like that. Henry actually loved to eat books. It happened quite by mistake one afternoon when he wasn't paying attention. He tried a single word just to test. Yes, he definitely liked them. Next, he tried a whole sentence. He still liked it, followed by the rest of the chapter. And by the end of the week, he had eaten a whole book. And by the end of the month, Henry could eat a whole book in one go. And he became known as the incredible book-eating boy. But here's the best part. And to show you this, I need to draw an anatomical diagram of inside Henry. So that's his brain cavity, and that's his brain. And then there's his stomach. So the more books that Henry was eating, there's a book, into the mouth it goes. All of the pages will go down into his belly to fill him up, and all of the information will go up into his brain, and he would get smarter. Henry loved being smart, and he thought if he kept going, he might even become the smartest person on earth. And he kept eating books. He kept eating them, any type of book at all. He wanted to know everything. He went from eating them one at a time to eating them 3 or 4 at a time, and he kept getting smarter and smarter and smarter, until the day it all started going horribly wrong. To show you how it was going horribly wrong, I need to draw you another anatomical diagram. So that's inside Henry's head again. First of all, he realized that he was eating too many books. So his belly looks like that. And all of the information in his head was getting mixed up, which looks like that. And it was coming out all over the place. 2 + 2 = Poland. That definitely was not right. Henry didn't feel so smart anymore at all. More than one person told him that he should not eat books anymore. So he sat sadly in his room for a long time, not entirely sure what to do. But then one day, and again, quite by accident, Henry picked up a half-eaten book from the floor. But instead of opening his mouth and shoving it in, Henry opened it up and began to read, and it was so good. Henry discovered that he loved reading, and now he reads all the time. He reckons that if he keeps going, he still might be able to become the smartest person on the earth. It just might take a little bit longer. Although, he did miss his old life on the road. So it wasn't very long before he took his tuxedo out of the cupboard, brought it to the dry cleaners, and resumed his persona, but this time as the incredible broccoli-eating boy. The end.
Hey y'all, we're back here at BookCon. I'm Austin Kleon, and joining me are two wonderful, brilliant women. Jessica Hagy is here, and Elle Luna. Jessica just put out a book in March called The Art of War Visualized. It's a brilliant visualization of a classic text. Can you just tell us a minute about the book, Jessica, and what it's about?
It's the entire Sun Tzu text of The Art of War, just with visuals. And when I read that book, like, you think, whoa.
All professional here.
Very nice. But you think it's going to be, like, super angry and, like, this is how you put heads on spikes, and this is how you cut hearts out of people, and, like, terrible things. And it was really about strategy and thinking and thoughtfulness and being aware of your situations and mindful of others and all this good stuff. And it's written in, like, little Bible verses. Like, 300 verses are the entire book. So, you know, like, New Yorker cartoons have the little caption, and then there's an image. And I saw it as the reverse of that. So I already had the captions. I just had to put the images on it.
When did you, when did you come up with, when did pictures and words come together for you? Or have they ever been separate?
I think they've always sort of been together because when, you remember in 4th grade when you had to get that pen that has the 4 colors?
Right.
And they told you how to take notes, and the notes are like A, capital A, lowercase a, green, blue, red. Like, I could not do that, but I could, like, draw little circles around things, and I could, like, draw little characters doing what I was supposed to take notes on. And so thinking how things looked and how they fit together always made more sense than, like, bullet points to me.
We grew up about 2 hours away from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you, tell me about where you grew up?
I'm from Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, right outside Akron.
Yeah. And I grew up in Circleville.
Yes, right outside Columbus.
So, and where do you live now?
I live in Seattle, Washington.
All right. So how does Seattle, what does Seattle do for you creatively?
I think there's just something about being able to go outside and see water and mountains and smell air and be around people who hang out in coffee shops and noodle on things all day, and who do research and who do development and who want to hack things. And that sort of let's dig into this further culture is really satisfying.
Cool. So Elle, I know you're kind of a nomad right now because you're on book tour and stuff, but where do you call home?
San Francisco.
All right, and what does San Francisco do for you?
San Francisco is the community is very open, and it's a community that enjoys prototyping and iteration. So it's a community where you always feel like no matter what you're working on, you can share it with other folks, and they'll help you break it and put it back together.
Cool. Well, I live in Austin, Texas right now, which is really goofy because being Austin and Austin is just getting a little too much. But one of the things you two are both internet people, and one of the things I've found is that my kind of crew or my scenius, Brian Eno calls it's not genius, it's scenius. It's your kind of scene of people, these people that kind of feed your life creatively. I found a lot of my scenius is online.
Yeah.
And that, the place that I live is a little bit more, the inspiration is otherwise. What's your advice to people who live in places that maybe, they're having a hard time finding like their scenius, or they're having trouble finding inspiration?
Well, I mean, how did you go from Ohio to Austin? Like you found the little tendrils of interest and somebody who just like got you. And you can find that in a place, you can find that on the internet, and as long as you put out those feelers and start looking for those people, you'll totally find them and they'll find you too.
One of the things I say is that if you share what you love, if you share what you're interested in, the cool thing about the internet is you will bump into people that also share those interests, right? So we've been talking about daily practice this whole time. I want to hear about your daily practice. Like what is like your creative day kind of like?
I really can't get started working and sitting down and drawing things until I've gotten out of my house and walked like a mile or two.
Right.
And that usually involves like stopping into a coffee shop, like eavesdropping on people, wandering around, seeing what's new in the neighborhood, checking stuff out, seeing what the weather feels like, just sort of walking and thinking. And once that's done, then I can get things done. But if I'm just cooped up in one spot all day long, I'm mush and I don't make much good art.
It sounds like a toddler-free existence.
Most of the time, that is one of the beauties of daycare. Other than that, they also know how to feed and change and clothe and teach the little child to talk and do all of his tricks.
I have found, so how old is your kiddo right now?
He's going to be 2 in July.
Okay, so I have a 2.5-year-old, so Owen's a little bit older, and then I have a 2-month-old. And I have found parenting to be, I've found it to be a little bit of, it's probably been the biggest creative challenge of my life. Although I will say, I have found that, creative people have to play, and they have to kind of go back to that childlike state of play. I was going to ask you, like, have you gleaned any, like, things from playing with your kiddo? Like, has your kiddo taught you stuff about your work?
I think the most influence he's had on my work is that I have to remember that if it's out there, he's going to find it someday. And having that sort of sense of, like, I can't be terrible and nasty and horrible because I don't want him to grow up and be like, my mom is a terrible person and I never want to speak to her again. Like, I have to make this stuff accessible to him at age 10 when he can read it, and when he's 40 and questioning, like, what kind of home should we put this woman in? Like, it has to have a lifespan beyond just today.
Right. So Elle, I know you have kids in your studio sometimes because I've seen you on your Instagram. Are those nephews? Are those kids of friends, or?
They are kids of friends.
Cool.
And I love having kids in the studio. I love seeing their exuberance, especially when you give them a couple of tools. There is something about the unbridled enthusiasm and creativity of kids, especially like around 3 to 6. You give them a paintbrush and they're fearless in front of a wall of canvases.
Yeah.
Watching them mix colors, there is no critical judging mind in their I watch them in awe. I learn a lot from kids.
Well, one of the things I was thinking about when I was reading your book, Elle, is that parenting is really about the should and must game gets amped up to a level that I don't think you can quite, understand until you're there. I mean, kids are an absolute, that balance between what you feel like you have to do and then what you have to do for your children. And one of the things I wanted to plug is I've read these 3 books by creative mothers this year that are all about that kind of integration of family life and art that I wanted to plug. There's one book that's wonderful called 100 Essays I Don't Have Time to Write by a woman named Sarah Rule. And she wrote all these essays, but she has 3 kids, and so she wrote all these essays about the theater and motherhood, and like in these little bits and pieces of time, like we talked about earlier. The other one was a fiction book called Department of Speculation by Jenny Awful, which is this great kind of examination of art and motherhood. And the other one that's really interesting is Maggie Nelson's The Argonauts that just came out recently. It's interesting because I'm a dad, but I found that reading about mothers and art has, for some reason, it's like helped me more than like actually reading about like dads and art. I don't know if that's what that's really about, but anyway. So we're in New York City. I know you have. What do you do when you're in New York City, Jessica?
I wander around.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As soon as I check into my hotel, I change my shoes and just take off and start watching people and popping into weird shops and just checking the place out, sort of absorbing it by osmosis.
Now, Elle, you've lived here before, right?
No.
Have you not lived here? Okay, so when we had dinner that one time, you were just visiting and
Yes.
you were in. So what do you do when you're in town?
Well, I was just thinking about what I did yesterday, and I just went right into my room and closed the door.
Really?
Really? There's something about the solitude of an anonymous hotel room that's fascinating to me. It's a completely anonymous, quiet space. And to be able to write and read, paint. I've been painting a painting a day while I've been on the road. And no matter if it's like on an airplane tray or in a hotel room, it's got to get done every day.
When I get the most work done is when I take off and I go to a hotel for a weekend and just close the door and do that. Like, it is the most productive time.
Is it Toni Morrison who does that? Who's always kept a hotel room in her small town? I forget what it is. There's one writer.
I think there are a lot of people that do that.
Yeah, they always keep and I think she I might be getting it wrong, but she like takes everything off the wall, and she's got like a dictionary, a Bible, a pack of cigarettes, a pack of playing cards, and like her typewriter or something.
And a bottle of whiskey.
Yeah.
Whiskey helps with wherever you are.
Whiskey helps a lot until it doesn't, right?
There's an arc of whiskey power that goes like, yeah.
It's interesting that you say there's an anonymity in a hotel room, because the thing I love about New York is there's anonymity in the crowd.
Oh, totally.
You know,
yeah.
I like walking around and just blending in. But then if you want to have an interaction, you will have an interaction at some point. You know, especially if you like go buy a sandwich or something. You know, you can have that interaction if you want to, or you can be completely anonymous. You know.
Will you work or practice today? We were just talking about it because it's a busy day.
Yeah. Well, this morning I jotted down a few things that I thought of, and then I'll probably draw some more stuff when I get back, but I have to get out and move around before I can do that.
Yeah.
It's just like a functionality of me.
And I think that we want to make that point again, that when you say the work, I mean, the work is many different things to me. I mean, it's not just writing, it's not just drawing. And I actually know a lot of cartoonists who they'll actually write down the things they want to draw before they even go to draw, you know?
And like you were saying, like a lot of the books you read are actually prep work for the next piece of art that you're going to make. Like you have to feed the system in order to get anything out of it.
Right. So if you had one piece of advice to the people out there for starting a daily practice, what would you do? Because we're running out of time a little bit, but just like a little sound bite for each person.
Start small and start consistently. Because if it's small, it'll get addictive and it'll get bigger, and then you won't be able to quit it.
Something small every day. What would you say, Elle?
I would say if you want to connect more with your must, find 10 minutes.
10 minutes every day. That sounds great. Well, I want to make another plug. This is The Art of War Visualized. It's by Jessica and Elle's fabulous the Crossroads of Should and Must. These are great books. I had a really fun time talking to y'all, and I look forward to hanging out some more. Right after the break, we're going to go back and we're going to have some more fun and hang out. And I'm new to this TV host gig, so I actually still have a few minutes left. But it was really a pleasure to talk to y'all. And thanks for coming. All right, more when we come back.
I am in this line right now because I think few books have done as much for educators as far as giving them a tool they can put in the hands of their kids to really have meaningful conversations about bullying and how we treat other people than this book. I think it's been one of the most important books of the last 10 years in children's books, without question. And it's just a great read, too. Really satisfying read. And I think it's also become a bestseller because everyone can relate to it. And people come in with different touch points, whether they're parents or teachers or kids. I love that it's a book that all ages are picking up and falling in love with.
I am huge into diversity, and diversity for me doesn't always mean race. It means diversity across everything. And so it's a great way to open up communication with kids about children with disabilities and how to interact with them and what to do. And all my kids at the library absolutely love that book. And the parents pick it up and are like, this is amazing too. So I think it works across a large range of audiences. So I love it.
Okay, we're sitting right now with R.J. Palacio, the author of Augie and Me, but also Wonder, which is a beloved book now. It's made its way into the canon of children's literature. And here you are returning with another one. Can you tell us a little bit about this new one?
Well, this is actually a bind-up of 3 short ebooks that I published over the course of this last year. One is told from the point of view of Julian, who is sort of the bully in Wonder, and the other is told from the point of view of Christopher, who is Augie's best friend prior to the events of Wonder. And then the third one is told from the point of view of Charlotte, who is one of the little girls who's chosen to be good friends with Augie in Wonder, but we never hear her point of view. And so they, all 3 points of view kind of enhance the original Wonder story, but they're also separate standalone books on their own.
And the original Wonder story has had such an effect on so many young kids. You couldn't have imagined it, even if hoping for the highest. What it's done, and now here you are with another one. But what does it feel like to have made an impact on so many kids? You must get the letters and all.
I do, actually. I'm not even equipped to, my life has taken this turn that I wasn't expecting. Because, when I wrote Wonder, there was a part of me that doubted it would even get published because of the theme, because, it wasn't, a trending topic at the time. It didn't have anything to do with vampires or fairies or anything like that. So to go from wondering if this little book that I was working on would get published to suddenly, it gets published and then, it hits the bestseller list, and then 3 years later, we're still talking about it, which is like beyond anything even I could imagine, and I can imagine pretty big, but this has been pretty amazing.
Yeah, the last time we talked about the movement that is Wonder, and it's really grown beyond the book into schools and libraries.
Choose Kind
idea. Choose Kind days. How do you keep up with it, or do you just kind of let it grow and sort of try to run up and stay ahead of it?
Yeah, well, it's kind of taken on a life of its own, and in a way it doesn't need me. I mean, the whole idea of kindness really is a very pay it forward kind of thing, and in a way this movement has gone well beyond R.J. Palacio or Wonder. It's kind of, this pay it forward idea has just caught on, and I think Wonder has been a great venue for people to use it as a starter of dialogues. But then it kind of grows beyond that and takes on a life of its own. And so I don't have a lot to do with those other conversations, the flowering of conversations about kindness that go on beyond the book. So it's been pretty amazing, because I do feel like it started with one thing and then it's become something beyond my ability to imagine.
You said your life took a turn that you didn't expect, and now here you are, the author of Wonder and other books now. Yeah. So when did you decide to just quit your day job and roll there? How did that decision come about?
I wrote Wonder 3 years ago. I've been in book publishing my whole life, and I only quit my day job 2 months ago. Because, having been in publishing, you kind of get used to the idea of authors having to supplement their incomes with a day job. So I was holding on to my day job because I just thought, well, this is going to end at some point. And it hasn't. Like we were just saying, it's kind of, the momentum keeps building. And so between this and then writing new books, I just thought, okay, it's time for me to just let go of my old life, let go of my old job, and just relax and be an author. So it's been great.
Well, I'm ready to be a Wonder Associate, or whatever you want to call us. I signed up.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, RJ. Great to see you again.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you.
Miami.
All right, we are back. We are back on the set of BookView now. Austin, thank you so much for joining us for the hour. It's been great.
I'm glad to be here. I'm excited that we're both turned out to be Miami University Redhawks.
Yeah, man, I had no idea. We talked for an hour, and I heard you mention in the last segment, which was wonderful. Thanks for taking the helm there.
I had fun.
That there's some Ohio in your background. And I was like, ting.
Definitely.
I'm a Michigan guy, but Miami of Ohio.
Ohio State paid the bills for 18 years, so I can't,
there you go.
But I don't have much loyalty anymore, so.
Well, it's wonderful that we share that, and it's wonderful that we shared this. This was really cool to have you here.
I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, and we'll do it again.
I would love
to.
We've
established something, and you're clearly very good at it. That's the other thing. So.
Ever since I saw Wayne's World, I've always wanted to have my own show.
There you go. Well, you sit in the chair well.